was the only thing I was able to grab at this time, but I'd like to do a few things, and then like for the next meeting, just have some little door prizes to get people in, and and have little fun things with us. You guys did get the brain teaser with the newsletter, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So those are a lot of fun to do. So we would like to try to have something like that here too. Through this session, go. That was the only thing I was able to grab at this time, but I'd like to do a few things, and then like for the next meeting, just have some little door prizes to get people in, and have little fun things with us. You guys did get the brain teaser with the newsletter, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So those are a lot of fun to do. So we would like to try to have something like that here too. Through this session, go. That was the only thing I was.
Really was. Just even volunteering, it was fun to be a part of it. The classes, I thought all the classes I went to were absolutely wonderful.
Really good. They were helpful and gave you lots of ideas for. Like you, Alicia, it's your first time, and she's our our new generation type person that we need to let suck into this profession.
I like the plenary sessions.
Yeah, the plenary
most
session.
of them.
Yeah. Yeah. This was we're all laughing just because the one plenary session was like watching Chip and Dale try to talk to each other, and the guy was just like the guy from Bueller. Anyone? I was like, oh. And it was like I went to the restroom and there was like mass exodus at that time, and they're like, I've been to 20, forums and plenary sessions, and this one is the worst, and so ever. And so we're like, oh. So I felt bad for Carrie with that one.
When I was looking at the Salt Lake table, it was amazing how many people said, this is so wonderful. Kudos to you guys. This is beyond what we've ever had before. So
yeah, that was the thing. I really wanted to say thank you to all of you because you guys made it. I mean, had we not had the energy that we had, I don't think we would have gotten all the people too. The excitement that was through the Insight. That is, again, a valuable tool that you guys can use that has from Nationals, the Insight, where you put ideas or questions or I need help with this type thing, and you can network with all these people. I mean, think about how many times you get thrown an RFP or something that you're like, oh, I have no idea even how to start with this one. And those are people out there that you never know. Like I said in that one workshop, I mean, this was more for personal for me, but she'd been spending a year looking for a synthetic ice that would work in California. And it was just because I love to skate that, I had that, so I gave it to her, and she was like, wow. Even when she put it out as an RFI, she couldn't get too much response. She got stuff, but it wouldn't work for their area. So, it's just really helpful in many ways. So, Kurt, you ready?
Sure.
Hey, now this is interactive, guys. You have to help us out here, so.
Definitely interactive. So just a big piggyback off of that, one of our sessions that I went to was a K through 12 education, and we kind of got into this room and probably had about this many people, maybe a little bit more, and kind of did the what's your problem. And so one of the things that came to my mind, and it really kind of took over, and I don't know if this is an issue with anybody here, but they talked about custodial services as a third party, or hiring out custodial services. And I thought, this doesn't apply to me, it's not a big deal, but it was interesting to see all of the different takes and how some people have just gone over to custodial services. And they're not employees, they're contracted out. And the pros and cons with that and things like that. And in my weekly meeting with my business administrator, I just threw that out, saying, yeah, this is one of the things that other school districts are experiencing. He kind of pauses, and he's like, yeah, I've thought about that, and so if you talk to your finance person, whether it be a school district or even a city or a county, this is a hot topic for business managers and those that make the decisions. So just so you're aware of that, just because you don't think it's a problem, I think networking and things like that, you'll catch some of those things that, yeah, it's an issue. They're talking about privatizing custodial. When I say privatizing, taking it out of the government so that they're not paying benefits and stuff like that. They're talking about the transportation departments, so busing is one of those big issues as well. They want to shrink government and then promote other types of things. So just so you're aware, that's one of the things on the radar out there for the level up finance people. They're talking about that. So just kind of food for thought. That Mark.
Ironically enough, I was in the transportation one, and janitorial came up to the other side.
Okay.
What a horrible nightmare it is contracting outside of the vendors.
Okay.
That's been like half the session. This is transportation, but we were talking about horrible janitorial services.
Yes. Yeah. So that's a real hot topic. From my perspective, I think it's great in-house. This is something that the business administrator and I talked about. Is like, well, you get the local control. They're not just custodian. They're not just cleaning. They're mini mechanics. They're little maintenance, people, things like that. So that's what a lot of them are doing. And he says, district spends a lot of money to clean up, wiping, those things down. He says that it's a lot of money. So they look at that and they think that's cost cutting because there's a lot of benefits paid. Sometimes they'll use these what's called sweepers. They're just part-time kids that come after. And so anyways, that's just one. Carolyn?
We've contracted out janitorial for a long time.
Okay.
But one of the things that we found value in is grouping. We have two groups. We have some of our large and small buildings in group 1, and some of our large and small buildings in group 2, so that we kind of weeded out this very small mom and pop stuff that you don't get good service. So we're attracting better companies that are doing everything green. They understand that type of thing. And at first we were just doing all these little buildings and having all these janitorial contracts, and that's just total waste of time. You have to, we found that grouping our buildings made the contract much more valuable. The larger companies would come and give us a good proposal. They were all, they all understood the environmental impacts of having all the green cleaning chemicals and all that stuff. And so that's kind of how we didn't start out that way, but we've learned over the years that is making a more valuable contract, attracting the right companies that can do a really good job.
So we have someone in the room that actually does that. That's great.
We actually do it.
You do as well. So that's something that's possibly coming. That might be one of your problems. So to kind of flip that around, there's a lot of issues with custodial, and let me throw that out there. Why is it such an issue?
Well, in UDOT's case, we were trying to get janitorial services for the port of entries.
Okay.
At the Gary port of entry. And what a packed place that is. Nobody wanted to drive hours and hours to the
Port of entries. Okay.
Carry your echo to clean in the middle of the night. It's so easy every day.
Okay. Is the procurement of it difficult?
It can be if you have the right, you gotta be very specific in those. A lot of the companies, the main people will be, the businessmen, but the people that they get will be from anywhere. And so there sometimes is communication breakdown between the person who actually signs the contract and then their people.
Right.
They don't get the communication of what happened in the contract. So one of the things that I started doing is having initiation time, having a contract initiation meeting, and we include the person who's going to be cleaning or the person who's going to be the head of that crew, plus the person who's signing the contract, myself, and the client in the room, and then we talk about the transition, how it's gonna happen, what challenges and problems, what phone calls that the client got from people saying, this wasn't dumped, my garbage smelled for a week, just little things that they said, so we got those information and had it in the meeting so that they saw, okay, these are things that we're getting complaints about over the last 5 years, so please make sure these items are okay. One of the big things that I think a lot of people didn't think about, we have a real estate department that actually governs the buildings, but they're not in there and they have several clients. They have a $250 fee that they put into their contracts for cleaning, but they never determined what was going to be included in that cleaning fee, and then they never went out to their clients and said, what do you need? Because client A, their expectation was spit shine my office for me. Client B was just empty my garbage and I'm happy. Client D was a daycare and they had federal regulations on them. So therefore, when we went through it, this was before I took it on, but in the transition, they ended up getting rid of a cleaning crew because the original solicitation that went out didn't include all of this stuff. And they were like, well, I didn't know that I was supposed to do this, this, this. So then they had to go back and redo their own contracts because they had to determine what they felt was going to be part of that $250 fee. And then anything above and beyond for each client was to be added so that way, they got their level that they needed and the daycare got their federal regulations met, because if they didn't get them met, they take away their license. So you have to make sure, so I think with cleaning, you have to make sure that the detail is there and the performance management is there, that they understand from the beginning how they're going to be, looked at, that they're going to be evaluated on a monthly or quarterly basis, and that they're going to, have to keep up that, or we cancel the contract and go forward. So there is a lot with making sure the detail is there.
Yes. Were you in the contract administration class? You repeated exactly what they discussed. So what's our problem? I think we do a great job of going out to bid, getting the solicitation done, and then just kind of handing it over. And that's one of the things that I've taken, not just this forum, I think the last 3 forums, it might be before them probably are tired of me harping on it, but we need to be contract administrators or better at contract administration. We're not buyers or purchasing agents, but we really should be honing our skills for this contract administration. And how do you do that? You go trial and error. You have a bad experience, and then you're like, okay, well, if we would have done the solicitation a little bit differently, or if we would have started it a little bit differently, knowing what the end's in mind. And how many here have a difficult time with their end users getting specifications for a solicitation? I think everybody does. I think that's one of our biggest challenges is communicating with our end users to get them what they want. They always think, well, you're just going to get low bid. I mean, I hear that all the time. You just want to get low bid. And we always try to push back and say, well, what do you want? We want to go with them. Okay? You can't just go with the company. Well, I've done all the homework and the research and things. And one of the things that we talked about in this contract administration, it's a huge, this is a multi-week probably course that you can take on contract administration. And so this is something I think that would benefit, if we did have some of these things that came in. And so as the education chair, I'll be kind of planning that out and having some different components, because there are a ton of components. I've got 2 pages just of outline, and each little spot could be a whole subject, a whole 2 hours worth of instruction. So, you made some great points. So what is our problem? A lot of times it's getting the products, services, and goods from or for our end users, and how do we go about doing that? It's working together with them. And in our district, we struggle sometimes to get those people to help us to say, okay, what do you want? I mean, and write it in a way that's detailed enough and say, well, so for snow removal services, we've used the same spec for a couple years, and we have different issues that, well, we're not going to pay a snow removal company to go out there if it's less than 2.5 inches. Well, we are a fairly big district, so we have some that are above mountains. So who's responsible for measuring the 2.5 inches? Is it the snow removal company? Is it our custodians at each school? You can have a 2.5, you can have inch difference in the property where you're measuring, things like that. So having those type of specifications written into the contract in the solicitation so they understand that, because they won't, well, why did you come out and, well, we measured it such and such address and it wasn't 2.5 inches. Yeah, but our school right here had 4 inches. So that's just an example that kind of I came up with of how we can better manage our contracts and do things like that. So I think, as a raise of hands, do you feel you're pretty, I mean, am I talking, or is this something that everyone has in common?
Yeah.
Is that something that you would be interested in getting more information about contract administration?
Yeah, sure.
Nancy?
Part of what I find the problem is, a lot of the problem is trying to get the end users to realize that we do need to work together, because they don't want us involved in their decisions. They just want to tell us. And so it's changing the whole culture of districts that have been that way for a long, long time. And so every time I have problems with the food or whatever, I continue to get the message out there. Carbon me on every contract issue, and then I try to deal with all of those so they don't have to. And just keep letting them know we're taking that off of their plate. They don't have to deal with the contract issues. And they can focus on serving the food or whatever it is they're doing. And now a lot of my end users come to me to solve the contract problems, but it's constant getting that message out there. And I think that's a lot of probably the same problems we all have.
So yeah, it's not making sure the bid's out for 7 days or 3 weeks, or the evaluation committee and the RFP scoring sheet. That's kind of easy. But it's the meeting, it's having a pre-construction meeting, because that's one of the things that I have been involved with at all in some of my stuff, is I just kind of hand it off to my new construction department and think, it's all good. But if we're trying to cultivate and develop vendor relations, and we don't know how people are performing, because when they come to us and say, company A is just terrible, and it's like, we just went out for bid, now they're coming back in, and now they're saying, well, we don't want to use company A because they were terrible. This is the first information you ever heard about it. So I think Nancy's point is, we are a team, we are working together, and the trust of, we're here to get what you need the most. And that, I think that's the hardest thing to, that gap, bridge that gap that we have between our end users and us, is we're here, yeah, to make sure that it's done correctly, but if it's doesn't work for you, then, I mean, we're dealing with a produce problem in our district right now, because for a year has been providing us subpar produce. Well, how do we now go out for a new solicitation that can ensure that we're going to get the result that we need, not just go back to the same company that we've been using for 15 years.
One of the ways that our facilities department at VU has combat some of the challenges with solicitations and trying to make sure, because we all know that if we get the best solicitation, it makes life easier for us in the long run, correct? Because as we have to renew the contract, we may have a few little adjustments due to changes, but basically if we get great specifications, one of the things they've done is they've created a place where the project managers can all tell us challenges that they ran into. And so we have a running list of them. And so these are things that they can send out to people so that they will get better specifications, so they don't run into this problem because they saw it, someone else didn't. And this way us as procurement can say, hey, look at this, let's fix this in the procurement process, and we're fixing it at the beginning and then taking it through. The other thing is educating your client. I think a lot of times we set up contracts and like Kurt said, we give them to them and we don't educate them how to do it because they're in the same position as us. Someone just said, get me a snow removal, get me a lawn guy. They did that at our wall mansion. They didn't realize that they needed to put in the contract that they host dignitaries, they host Mitt Romney and friends, they, Orrin Hatch, they have weddings. So when you have a lawn guy, he has to be there. He has to make sure. And we had a lawn guy pull out because, we expected him to start on a certain date and he waited 3 weeks before he started and we had weddings starting in spring. And we needed him on that. And again, this was a contract that was before I came in and we found out, well, she's like, I have weddings here. And I said, did you put that in the contract? No. So those are the things. We have to be not just procurement professionals, but we have to be brainstormers. We have to think outside the box for them because they're in the box. So sometimes they're looking like this through this little hole. And because we don't know much, we have to ask those questions. So what about this? Well, what do you do? Things like that. So sometimes you being the brainstormer for them will help you get better specifications.
Sounds like my marriage. My wife wants me to be a mind reader to know what she wants. But didn't you know that? Did you put it in my contract?
Yes, she did. It was an invisible ink.
It's other duties as assigned. Yeah. Okay. So that's good information. That's one of the biggest things that I pulled from forum. And one of the things that I wrote down is inside community. Now, if you had a chance to volunteer, you actually have a membership to NIGP National. And so you should have a login now. You should actually go in, create a login, and then you can enjoy some of the things that we've done. I know in my department, sometimes we'll do the webinars. Well, now you can choose any webinar you want and actually select some that have happened, the last several years. So that would be a great resource for those that have that national. And so they do have these inside communities, and one of them is a contract administration community. I think I'm in a K through 12 community, and I'm in a construction community. And you'll get emails periodically with different threads. People will ask these questions, and I'm like, you guys have to deal with that. I just delete that and move it over. But it's interesting though to see some of the things like custodial, like, oh, you have to worry about that. It's too bad for you. But in this profession, you don't know necessarily where you'll be, and you also don't know necessarily what's coming your way with procurements and things like that. So I would highly encourage those that have that to use that community and be able to take advantage of it. You have until, I don't know, next June, depending on when you signed up to do that. But the community is really a really good thing. Anything else out there that, Joan?
I think a lot of the things that were focused on this year was cybersecurity and fraud and all of that stuff. And I think that would be a great thing if somebody here to teach us. You will, yeah. And then, oh, okay, good. Here. Okay. I know, yeah. So one of the things that I took from the K-12 session, which just, for some reason, I guess we don't realize how lucky we are in Utah to be in Utah, because a lot of the people were saying they were having to completely surround their schools with chain link fences. Did you get that? And they were having homeless live on their school grounds, and they would have to go out on a daily basis and pick up needles and everything from their schools. Wow. And I just thought, oh my gosh, I don't think I've ever heard of that here at that amount, but I was thinking, we don't realize how lucky we are to be here in Utah and not to have that yet.
You don't have fences in Davis School District?
Not yet. Next year.
No, seriously. I think Jordan, we had a safety thing 3 years ago after the Sandy Hook. We did new entrances in the buildings and then fences as well.
We have the new entrances don't have a completely, they were talking 6-foot fences that, I mean, they were locked at night, so people couldn't, they had to climb over the fence to get in there. And I just thought, wow, we're not quite to that yet, but I hope we never get there.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Are we building prisons or are we building schools?
That's exactly what I thought.
And they have areas where they have homeless shelters and, like Mid Valley Elementary School, which is just right down here where I was at. We had, the halfway housing where they're just out of rehab and they're in these housing and we, all the time, every day, there was a kid fighting a needle. And it was, it's kind of scary. So then we had to start having our recess people come early so they could check all morning before kids got there. Because we had access for them to walk over the little stream that was there, and we couldn't close it off like we wanted to, and that's where they would get through, is that little access that we needed for our students, because otherwise they'd have to walk down the main street to get into the school. So it's kind of those things that you don't think about, and again, going back to the forum is perspective. We've got to look at it from an outside, a different perspective on everything that we do now.
Fraud prevention is one of those. I did a webinar on fraud prevention a couple of weeks back, and they talk at another level. So I'm gonna have to go back into the recording and really kind of capture some of that stuff. Because, you know, if it did in the school district, it doesn't seem like you're vulnerable, but we had fraudulent POs being sent out to all these vendors all over the country to buy, you know, just these iPads and radios and things like that. There's probably 12 or 13 of them that we knew about. Most of the times they weren't even customers that we had. They weren't even vendors that we used on a normal basis. And so I think, and I got in contact with West Jordan City Police, and they just kind of gave me the runaround and didn't do anything until something happened and someone actually shipped it out of state, and the FBI got involved. It ended really quickly. It just, once the FBI got involved, it seemed like they packed up and moved on. I think they moved on to Davis.
Yeah.
So I think we had the University of Utah first a couple years back, did that, and then we had it. But I blame it on Gary Hansen because it was all the POs were being signed by Gary Hansen.
From Jordan School District.
From Jordan School District, yeah. And my email was being copied. It was a jordandistrict.net or a jordandistrict.org with a double R, things like that. And so, I mean, in a way, I kind of felt violated, but I'm also like, there's nothing really you can do. I contact the police and things like that. But now this new thing about Experian, 143 million people that probably have their social security numbers compromised, and that's a pretty big deal. So universities, education are going to be prime targets because they have those Freedom of Information Act and grammar requests and things like that people will take advantage of.
One of the cybersecurity classes I went to, he was talking more on personal stuff, and he was talking about people when they sign up for a Facebook page, don't realize that they have to go back into the settings, and if you don't change it to just friends see, the whole world sees everything you post. So I'm out with my phone.
I want everyone to see what I'm doing. I don't know about you. I'm an open book.
But it was interesting where he took it down that far that people don't realize when they just sign up for a Facebook page and they're inviting all these friends. Well, everybody that friend is a friend of, and that friend is a friend of, and that friend is a friend of, can see everything you post unless you go into it. So everybody had their phones out. So it was interesting.
Yeah. So that will affect our procurements for sure, and more we should be getting information systems or technology involved in our solicitations because it affects it so much. I know, we always, even if we're not getting a software system, does that have anything to do with your network or anything like that? Info systems, or that's what we call it in our district. What's it called? IT. Info systems or IT should be increasingly involved in your solicitations. Maybe they craft something for you that's just your standard language by identity protection. So if anything that you're dealing with, they're gaining information from you or requesting from you, there should be a standard boilerplate. Might be a good starter point.
Jonathan, do you guys have anything in the hospital since you guys have really
strict FERPA laws and things like that that goes in any of your solicitations?
In the RFPs we do, yeah. There's standard language that we have in, because we moved to SciClass.
Right.
And so there's a library and we have an appendix B that covers a lot of that.
Okay. Anything else out there? Do you challenges, anything else that has come up that you need somebody other than me to tell you that's all that? I definitely can't.
Any other training needs?
I did solve all of Gary Hansen's problems. He said he's here working too long. I said, learn to delegate. Mic drop right there. Mic drop. So, no, that's just.
It's true.
Anything else? Give an amen in the back.